you everyone for checking out the Virtru Compliance Champion Assessor Spotlight of this week. For this episode, we have Derrich Phillips from Aspire Cyber, someone that I've got to know and is extremely well accomplished in his field. So Derrich, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Aspire Cyber?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate you having me. My name's Derrich Phillips. I'm the founder and president of Aspire Cyber, which specializes in CMMC readiness. We also are an approved training provider, delivering the CMMC certification training for the CMMC certified professionals and CMMC certified assessors. And my wife and I started Aspire Cyber back in 2021. Prior to that, I was working for Bank of America doing third-party risk assessments. So that was really my first introduction into the whole regulatory procurement compliance world. And here we are today. So we are really focused on helping organizations navigate CMMC requirements and really taking them from not even knowing what CUI is or CMMC is to getting that level 2 CMMC certification. And to date, we've helped 6 organizations achieve CMMC level 2 certification.
That's great. Congratulations, and thanks for your help supporting the defense industrial base. So yeah, share with us a little bit more about, what are you seeing right now with readiness assessments? How are organizations preparing for CMMC? What are some challenges they're seeing, and what would be some kind of advice that you would give them?
I would say I'm starting to see a lot more activity on the readiness side, where organizations are biting the bullet and making that investment. Once in December, I was hoping that I was going to have kind of relaxing holidays, and it was anything but. December was probably our busiest month of the year. So many organizations were looking to start their CMMC compliance journey before the year, and it was just off to the races, and it's been that same way ever since. So it is encouraging to see organizations figuring out that CMMC is not going away, and that it probably is going to be a good return on investment for them to consult with experts or solution providers like Virtru, who can help them really streamline the process and in return save a lot of money, frustration, heartache by partnering with people who know what they're doing. Because I always say CMMC is not a DIY project, and especially for levels 2 and 3, because there are so many nuances and just areas where you really have to have a specialized expertise to understand how to interpret those requirements and what that means in plain English. So that's what we pride ourselves on, helping our clients translate those requirements into practical, affordable solutions that's going to ultimately help them reach their goal, is to keep on winning Department of Defense contracts or keeping their existing contracts. So we do the heavy lifting on the compliance side. We don't expect our clients to be CMMC experts. That's our job. That's what they're paying us for. So we are just trying to help them navigate and align with affordable solutions that's going to be practical for their business operations.
That's great. Tell us what's a little bit more about what is it like to work with Aspire Cyber? What are your processes, and what have you heard from customers as to what their experience has been working with you?
Sure. So we coined what we call our CMMC acceleration system, or compliance acceleration system. And basically what that consists of is 5 phases, where it starts with our pre-assessment. And in that phase, we're walking our clients through the scoping, understanding what information they have in scope, whether it's federal contract information or controlled unclassified information. And then from there, identifying what system is in scope. And that means their people, their facilities, their technology that process, stores, or transmits that sensitive information. Once they have a grasp of that, we'll just keep going down the list, getting granular, understand, okay, what are those assets? And then what are opportunities for us to reduce that assessment scope? Because that really is the name of the game, where you can reduce that scope, whether you're using an enclave or you are just restricting who has access to that sensitive information, then that can help save you a lot of money, because and compliance burden, you have to factor it in. So if your organization where you have a blank check, you don't have to worry about money, you have to worry about that compliance burden that your team members are going to have to experience if they're in scope for that assessment. Because CMMC is not about convenience, it's about essentially safeguarding the confidentiality of CUI. So along those lines, yeah, it's going to be really a culture shift for organizations who are first embarking on this CMMC journey, because again, they're going to have to change the way they're doing business, at least in the context of handling FCI and CUI. So that, I would say, is the biggest challenge for a lot of organizations, understanding that culture shift, and no longer is it about doing business the way you've always done it. This is a new day. That CMMC at level 2 and level 3 requires that CMMC third-party assessment organization. So that third-party assessment organization coming in to assess your compliance. So you can't fake your way through it. You can't hope your way through it. You have to be able to produce the evidence to show that you're doing what those requirements outline. So it really is crucial to make sure that either whether you have someone internally that you're working with, or that's the team member that's certified and understand the requirements, or that you're partnering with someone who does, because they're going to help you navigate that process. So that's the pre-assessment. We spend a lot of time in the pre-assessment. That can be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on how complex the organization is. And I would say that's the area that organizations that we're seeing struggle the most, because a lot of times they don't know what CUI is. They don't know what is not marked. It's just so many just unknowns and gray areas. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're not getting any guidance from their contracting officer or prime contractor. So they're trying to figure this out for themselves for the first time in their history of doing business with Department of Defense. So but it's crucial to do that. Always equate the pre-assessment phase to if you're building a house, you have to have that foundation, and that's the pre-assessment. The next phase, the assessment phase, you're building the walls. You need to understand, okay, what's our current state today against the requirements? And that is just that. You're looking to see, okay, do we have these controls in place? Or if we do, all right, the requirement's met. If we don't, it's not met. So for CMMC level 2, there's 110 requirements, but you can't forget about the 320 assessment objectives, which correspond to the requirements, which for someone like myself as a lead assessor, when I'm doing a certification assessment under a CWPO, I'm looking to see if they're meeting the requirements based on the assessment objectives. For example, for access control 3.1.1, it has the requirement essentially limiting access to that system, but it has 6 assessment objectives that correspond to it. If 5 of those assessment objectives are met out of 6, that requirement's still not met. You need to meet all of the requirements, all the assessment objectives. So that's our gap assessment. And during that phase, we're helping our clients identify their current state, documenting any of deficiencies and putting that on a plan of action and milestones so they can remediate. Phase 3, the remediation, we're supporting them to whatever level of support they need for remediation, up to hands-on keyboard or referring solution providers or anything they need to remediate those deficiencies. Phase 4, documentation. We are helping with all of the system security plan, the policies, the procedures. CMMC is very documentation heavy at level 2 and 3. So that alone is a major undertaking for the documentation, because as an assessor, we're not going to take your word for it. We want to confirm that, hey, you have to show me, prove it that you're actually doing what you say you're doing. And then phase 5 is certification. We're getting them ready for game day for the actual certification assessment. So we're mapping all of the evidence to the assessment objectives. We are going to do a mock assessment. So think of that as a dry run where we're applying the same level of rigor they're going to experience during the certification assessment. We're leveraging the methods that assessors have to validate if a requirement is met, which includes review, interview, and test. So we're applying those same methods, following all the same processes that are outlined in the CMMC assessment process, the CAP. And once they complete that, if they score a perfect 110 during that mock assessment, they can be relatively have a high level of assurance that they're going to pass their certification assessment. We can't guarantee it as a consulting company because some variables are out of our control, but they know they're in good shape. What they don't want to do is go into a certification assessment, never having done a mock assessment, never done a gap assessment, and just hoping for the best. That's not going to go well. Those assessments are high stakes, they're expensive, and you don't want to go in without being prepared.
Yeah, well, that sounds extremely thorough. And I'm not surprised to hear a thorough answer, because for those who have not seen Derrich's social presence, he has a library of extremely helpful public documentation and resources outlining his process. So would recommend people check that out I've personally learned a lot from Derrich, even before speaking with him for the first time, as I shared, just seeing him on the internet. And so I'm curious, what's your take on from what you just described? I could easily see the return is there. Getting prepared properly ahead of time is going to be a all-in better use of money than winging it and failing. So for those who are not opting for, or maybe on the fence of not engaging with a consultant, what are the biggest reasons why you see that, and what advice would you give them?
I would say the biggest reason is budget, and I understand it, especially a lot of defense contractors are small businesses and they're not making millions of dollars. They have really tight margins. And for them, ultimately, it's going to be a business decision if they're going to continue doing business with the Department of War, because um, it's CMC is not optional. And if you are receiving or producing that sensitive information that's in scope for CMMC in the performance of your contract or subcontract, then you're putting your organization at a big risk if you're not safeguarding it to the CMMC requirements. So you have things like False Claims Act and whistleblowers, where they have to be concerned about their potential civil and criminal penalties. And for small businesses who realize that, okay, let's say, for example, they're making their margins, they're making $20,000 on that contract total, it may not be a good line of business for them to continue in, because CMC it costs money, and it is complex. So beyond that, if it's beyond the financial part, I would say, yeah, that would be my advice to those really small micro businesses, where if they can't afford to continue, then that's just a business they have to make. But also, before they do that, speak with a consultant or someone who can guide them objectively in the right direction. Say, okay, let's consider how we can reduce your scope to as small as possible, and then what are those available solutions where you can maybe inherit a lot of the requirements from like a Virtru Enclave or so forth. So that can be more affordable than if they're trying to go a different direction and bring everything in house and host the systems themselves. So unfortunately, at this point, there are affordable solutions out there that they can look into that can make them, hopefully keep them in the defense industrial base, because we need more small businesses in the DIB. Beyond that, if I've also encountered more so on larger organizations, because we specialize in supporting research universities um, and manufacturers as well, where it can just be just kind of a lot of bureaucracy and red tape in terms of them onboarding a new vendor, and it's just a lot of catch the herd, so to speak. So that could be another challenge for organizations in engaging consultants.
That's helpful. And if an organization was interested in maybe evaluating if they were going to be able to and want to partner with you and use your consultation services, could you walk us through just what's an average sort of initial engagement look like? Not financially, but more, do you give a initial consultation with a similar overview and maybe in more detail? But what does that look like for those who've just never engaged with something like this before?
Certainly. So typically, they would come in through our website and they could schedule a free consultation, or they may, like you maybe found me on YouTube or something and then email me directly. I'm happy either way works for us, but we'll schedule typically a 30-minute kind of discovery call with them to get understanding. All right, what requirements do you have? Do you currently have a defense contract, or are you anticipating one? And then also, what type of information are you handling? What's your system? And once we have a good feel of that, then just kind of talking them through what are some viable options. And we really pride ourselves on being able to save our clients money and time. So if there is, going back to a micro business where maybe they're not even handling CUI, they just anticipate getting it at some point, maybe they just need secure email and storage, then we will point them into a direction where, okay, yeah, you may want to go with like a Virtru or some type of enclave where you can just really keep that scope small and do it cost effectively, versus by us being vendor agnostic. We're not just going to by default tell them, okay, go to another solution provider, even though it may not be the most cost effective or the best solution for them, just because that's all we know or what we do. So that's what we pride ourselves on. We have several clients where we have done once they got their certification, done interviews with them, and they explain like how they've saved over six figures by engaging us because we were able to point them in a direction that they otherwise ever went in another direction would have cost them a lot more money. So I think that's something that's really important for the defense contractors to really have that trusted resource, whether it's a consultant, whether it's the Apex accelerators, the MEPs. DoD puts out a lot of content, cyber AV, town halls. Just really try to find those trusted resources and ask for referrals and reviews and things like that too.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And that's something that I've learned myself too from getting to know you and talking with other consultants and assessors in the CMMC space is that they do typically have a vendor agnostic approach where, to your point, an organization who hasn't really done anything like CMMC before, maybe they often just hear and know about the sort of incumbents, the largest, the most expensive options. And
Right.
working and paying for consultation services with you all in, they're going to save money because they don't know about all the options. And on a regular basis, I'm assuming you're learning about technologies like Virtru and others and able to give more options and give an idea of what the cost of each would be, which is extremely valuable in my perspective to these really small businesses. So I think that's great. And for those who didn't know, you just reiterated that. Let's switch gears a little bit because I know that you also mentioned that you're a training provider. So would love to hear a little bit about kind of what's going on there, that line of the business, and who that would be more better suited for to consider reaching out to you to learn more about that.
Certainly. So we became an approved training provider in November, but I've been delivering the CCP and CCA training for other training providers as an instructor a little over 3 years now. And it's something I'm really passionate about, educating, mentoring, coaching. So it only made sense for us to start this line of business, become an approved training provider. But it's a lot of excitement on this side, especially now that ISACA has taken over the CAECO and they're responsible for the overall certifying of the professionals and assessors and also the instructors. So it has been given a lot more credibility to the certification pathway under CMMC. And now it's just so almost daily people are reaching out to me as they're learning about CMMC and exploring how can they make that transition either just from cybersecurity or IT or other career fields into CMMC. As I mentioned, it's specialized. Just because someone's been doing cybersecurity or IT for 20 years, that doesn't mean they understand NIST and CMMC. So it's a lot of activity on that side where we are being able to help really take the same approach, kind of like that discovery first call with them. What are you trying to do in your career in CMMC? You want to be an assessor, you want to be a consultant, you want to be an instructor. So get the feel of that and then guide them in the right direction. Because currently right now, there's a huge gap in the industry from the training side as far as hands-on experience. Because you have these professionals who are now getting certified, but they haven't been on assessment, they haven't done any consulting, and it's a steep learning curve. So that's one thing that distinguishes us as a approved training provider, where we do have other training solutions in parallel that offers the hands-on training. For us, we call it our CMMC Co-Pilot. It's a 24-week intensive hands-on training for CMMC consultants and assessors. So we view it as offering like a holistic approach to the CMMC training.
That's great. And would any of those ever be appropriate or geared towards a professional that's more managing the compliance program at an actual organization for the organization, or is this really more geared towards those looking to make it a career and, like you said, maybe be a consultant or an assessor?
So both. We are getting in the typical especially CCP class, you'll have probably more defense contractors or solution providers in that course, just so they can have a good understanding and foundational knowledge of CMMC as they're speaking to their clients or internally helping their organization prepare for certification assessment. So you have a good combination. And then with our CMMC Co-Pilot hands-on training, it's the same. You have the ones who are looking to do it from a career standpoint, but you also have defense contractors who are looking to be able to go through that training that's led by myself and other certified professionals. And they view that as, okay, can be our sounding board. This can be our opportunity to make sure that we're on the right path, almost like they're having a consultant, but through that training, and they're learning themselves to be empowered to help their organization navigate it. In addition to that, we offer customized workshops for like the sales team, senior leadership, those type of teams who don't need to have a wide breadth of understanding of CMMC. They just need to have just a foundational knowledge as it pertains to their role. So we customize workshops for them as well. And that's what's really cool about the CMMC training, being an approved training provider, is we can customize a lot of different, well, obviously we have the license training, we have to do that for the CCP/CCA, but we can supplement that. And then also we can make workshops that's customized to the various stakeholders. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to make sure we're meeting people where they are.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it sounds like if someone does check out Aspire Cyber and they see some of your offerings, but maybe they're thinking what they're looking for isn't exactly listed there, when in doubt, to reach out to you, because you may be able to customize something to best suit their needs. I think that wraps up this episode. Just wanted to again say thanks, Derrich. For those interested in learning more about Aspire Cyber and reaching out to Derrich, you'll see his contact information here. It sounds like, Derrich, you're a great resource for other people to check out and work with.